Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. A very warm welcome to the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar for exams in September 2021 being organized by ACCA Pakistan. I am your tutor Kashif Kamran, and this is the final day of this AAA Practice to Pass webinar, the fifth day and the final day. So in terms of being the final day, it is a very, very important day because we are not just discussing the agenda item today, we will also be discussing many more tips and techniques to enable you pass the AAA exams in the upcoming session, September 2021. Just confirming, all of you can hear me loud and clear. So we can start with the proceeding of the final day of this AAA Practice to Pass webinar. Okay, that's great. If you can all hear me loud and clear, thank you for confirming that. Let's start on with the proceeding of this webinar. Now, today is the fifth and the final day, and the focus of this fifth and final day is to look at review of prospective financial information, which is an other assignment and a very important other assignment because it has been a very regular feature of the past exam papers. Completing the review of prospective financial information, I will be focusing on exam tips and techniques, which is a much needed confidence booster and a much needed motivation ahead of the September 2021 exam. So you should not miss the last 90 minutes of the webinar today because that is extremely important in terms of very insightful exam tips and techniques coming from the tutor. So let's start on with the proceeding of the day 5 of this webinar, the final day. Now, in terms of the final day, we have two agendas on focus. One is to focus on review of prospective financial information, and then one is to focus on the exam tips. Before the break, we are on review of prospective financial information, and after the break, we will be on exam tips. Let's start on with the journey. Now, in terms of review of prospective financial information, there is no article for this topic. So that would be a big relief to all of you because you will just be relying on the knowledge of the webinar. There is no specific article on review of PFI. Examiner do's and don'ts, I will be guiding you about that as I start the topic, and I will be telling you the constructive criticism of the examiner. In terms of the drilling, I'll take the most latest paper available on PFI, which is a question number 3A of the March 2020 exam, and I will be drilling that with you in this live session. Lastly, you need to complete the discussed question and you need to watch the previous webinars as your home assignment. Let's see which previous webinars are recommendable for the topic today. Now, in terms of my previous webinars, there is a webinar I conducted in March 2018 and the day 4 of the webinar. The hyperlink is given to you where I covered the review of prospective financial information. Then on the day 4 of the December 20 webinar, I conducted the webinar not on review of prospective financial information, but on matters in accepting an engagement and matters in accepting a new client. If any one of you wants to be good on a syllabus area, which is known as practice management, and I hope you all know that practice management is a very regular syllabus area which comes in exam paper. So if you want to be good in practice management syllabus area, which is the syllabus area C, you can watch the day 4 of the December 20 webinar that will help you broaden your perspective about practice management, and that will also help you in terms of the topic review of prospective financial information. I will be telling you what is the link between matters in accepting an engagement and the review of prospective financial information, which we are starting today. So let's take on the word file for the fifth and the final day. I hope you can all see the word file in front of your screen now. This is the final day of this webinar, and the objective today is to focus on review of PFI, the prospective financial information, and then to focus on the exam tips for September 21. So let's start on with the proceedings. Now, firstly, what you need to understand as a student is that we are starting with a topic which is review of PFI. I am using the short form. I hope you're familiar with this PFI terminology, review of prospective financial information. Let's start the proceedings. Now, first thing you need to understand is that there is a syllabus area F, syllabus area F, and the syllabus area F is known as other assignments and is a very important syllabus area of the AAA exams. Now, how does other assignments or syllabus area F gets tested? How this area is tested in AAA exams. Now, when you look at the testing of other assignments, the syllabus area F, from where we are doing one of the topic today, it gets tested in section B of the paper. You will never get other assignments syllabus area F in the section A because syllabus area F is default in the section B of the paper. So the other assignments can be tested either in either question 2 or question 3 because that's the section B. Now, since last 2 exam sittings or since last 3 exam sittings, we know that the examiner is focusing on question 3, which is the last question, as a completion and reporting question. So examiner has settled down and examiner will now continue with the same trend in the upcoming exams, that the question number 3 is now a fixed question on the completion and reporting stage. Now that means if you're looking for September 21 exams and onwards, you will find the syllabus area F if examined, because it's not every time that you get a syllabus area F, if examined from September 21 onwards, you will find the syllabus area F in question 2 for sure. If examined, because it's not every time you get a syllabus area F, it's not that sort of a topic. But if it gets, it will be in question 2 because examiner has very affirmatively fixed the question 3 on completion and reporting. So the question number 1 is planning. The question number 3 is completion and reporting. So the only question left where the examiner can fit in the syllabus area F is the question number 2, right? So question number 3 is on completion and reporting now. So question number 2 is the only question where the examiner can bring in the syllabus area F. Now, the final verdict, irrespective whether the examiner puts it in 2 or 3, the more focal point is section B. Completion and reporting comes in section B, right? And other assignments also come in section B, irrespective whether the examiner put it in 2 or 3. But I think the more important learning is that in section B, syllabus area F can be examined. Syllabus area F never comes in question number 1. Right, so that's the focus of the topic we are starting. Now in syllabus area F, there are numerous assignments. Syllabus area F consists of the following 4 assignments, and I've covered all of them in my previous webinar. But the reason I'm focusing on the review of PFI is that I've not touched upon review of PFI in the recent webinars. So syllabus area F consists of due diligence review. I've already conducted a webinar on that. Due diligence review, audit of performance information. I've already covered a couple of webinars on it, and at least you should watch the 4 previous webinars, right? I've conducted a webinar on forensic audit couple of times, forensic audit, and the final one is review of PFI. I think the last time I spent my efforts on review of PFI was way back in 2018 webinar, which the link of which has been provided to you. And after that, I didn't focus on it. So I thought I should focus on it again so that you get a renewed energy behind this topic, review of PFI. So that's what I am focusing on from the syllabus area F today. I hope you're clear with this background and perspective of the syllabus area F. So now let's start with review of PFI. Now, first of all, what you need to know about review of PFI. First of all, you should know that it is a review engagement, and because it's a review engagement, so in terms of being a review engagement, the level of assurance which is given by the auditor is the moderate assurance. And we know that the moderate assurance is also known as a limited assurance and is also known as a negative assurance. They are all synonyms. So that is the first thing. Secondly, when you look at the review engagement and review of PFI, so the auditor is conducting a review of prospective financial information. Now, something is very important here to understand the topic. The auditor is conducting a review, not an audit, of a prospective financial information. Now, this word prospective is important. That is, you're looking into the future. Prospective financial information. Now, any financial information can be given to you as a student. Any prospective financial information can be given to you in exams. If you look at past papers, following financial information has been examined. Number one, examiner has given you a couple of time a cash flow forecast. Examiner has given you, I think, a couple of time a forecasted profit and loss, a forecasted profit or loss. And I think one time, that was way back in 2012 exams, that's a very old paper, that examiner has given you a forecasted financial statement as a whole. So these are the three areas which have been examined so far. Either the examiner gives you a cash flow forecast, or a forecasted profit and loss, or a forecasted financial statement as a whole, but that was a very old question. In the recent past, it has either been a P&L or it has either been a cash flow, which is the prospective information the examiner is giving you in the exam paper. Now, when you get a prospective information as an auditor in exam paper, what you need to do with the prospective information? Now, first of all, you need to understand that the prospective information is dealing with future, and future is equal to uncertainty. Future is equal to uncertainty. Future is equal to estimates. Future is equal to risk of management bias, because management is estimating the future. Future uncertainty, future estimate, future risk of management bias, future subjectivity. So there are a lot of risk, right, when it comes to a future information, because who is preparing the future information? Who is preparing the future information? The management. So management is involved in making the future information. So we need to be very, very critical. Secondly, assumptions about the future event. So when the management is preparing a cash flow forecast, or when the management is preparing a forecast profit and loss, what is the management taking? The management is taking the assumptions, right? I hope you agree with me. The management is taking assumptions about the future. Now, these assumptions could be right and could be wrong. So what is the role of the auditor? The role of the auditor is to critically evaluate the appropriateness of the assumptions used by the management. Is everyone clear so far, so forth? So the role of the auditor is to critically evaluate, when he's performing a review, critically evaluate the assumptions used by management, whether the assumptions are right or wrong. You all agree as accountants with me that assumptions should have sound basis. If the assumptions don't have a sound basis, the assumption will be unrealistic. So assumptions should have a sound basis is equal to, it becomes realistic. But if the assumption don't have a sound basis, it automatically becomes unrealistic. Is everyone clear on this? Can you confirm through your chat box quickly? Are you getting my voice? Are you hearing me? And are you through on this bullets? Okay, that's great. Thank you. So prospective information is about future, is about assumptions. The role of the auditor is to critically evaluate the appropriateness of the assumptions made by the management, and the assumptions should have a sound basis so to be realistic. So now, knowing all this and looking at this topic, review of the prospective financial information, what is exactly an exam question? Now, when you look at an exam question on a review of prospective financial information, every time, whether it's in 2012 or whether it's in 2020, every time when the examiner put a question on review of prospective financial information, examiner is putting two things in perspective. Number one, the examiner asks you matters to consider when invited to review when invited to an engagement to review prospective financial information. So examiner will ask you, what matters will you consider as an audit firm when you are invited by the client to an engagement to review a PFI? So does that means you are accepting an engagement to review a PFI? And this engagement could be accepted from the existing client of yours, and this could be from a new client. You have been invited by whom? You have been you have been invited to an engagement, right, to review PFI. Now this invitation you get could be from existing client of yours, or this could be from a new client which is not your audit client. So when you are invited, you need to look at the case study very carefully. Who is inviting you? Whether your existing client is inviting you, number one, or your new client is inviting you. And according to that, you need to consider the matters which you should focus on. I'll just be giving you the breakup of the matters shortly. The second question, which is very regular feature of PFI, is procedures. Procedures you should perform to gather procedures you should perform on the prospective financial information, and that is maximum the examiner tests you on PFI. Matters and procedures you should perform. Now we need to focus on two things, and we need to understand two things very, very carefully. Number one, first of all, when you look at the first aspect of the exam question, which is asking you matters to consider when invited to an engagement to review PFI, right? Now, this is a question which is part and parcel of a syllabus area which is known as practice management. And I have covered practice management in the December 2020 webinar. I've already given you the hyperlink of that at the start of my session today, right? Now, matters to consider when invited to an engagement to review PFI. These are the matters which you need to consider when invited. Now, you know this is a very focal topic in AAA that you need to consider. Just give me 1 minute. You need to consider these matters when invited. Again, either from an existing client, the matters will be a bit different, and from new client, the matters would be different. Now, there is a topic in AAA known as practice management. And for practice management, the examining team has written an article. Examining team has written an article which is known as acceptance decision for audit and non-audit engagement. And I even recommended you that when I was making a list of the 15 articles you should be reading. Examining team has written an article, acceptance decision for audit and non-audit engagement. Look at this, acceptance decision, not for audit. We are not looking at audit currently. We are looking at acceptance decision for a non-audit engagement. Review of a PFI is a non-audit engagement. So there are so many non-audit engagements you have in AAA: forensic, due diligence, audit of performance information, and review of PFI. So non-audit engagement. If you read this article after the session today, you will get to know the parameters you consider when you are invited to accept an engagement which is a non-audit engagement. So this article will help you. I've already conducted this practice management session in my December 2020 webinar, and I've already shared the link of that with all of you. Let me show you that. See this. Can you all see this December 2020 day 4 right here? Look at the link here. So please do this. Day 4 of the December 2020 webinar, right? That's what I am recommending here. So I've already covered this on my December 2020 webinar day 4, and that will really help you. Okay, now for the sake of understanding matters to consider when invited to when invited. For what? For an audit services? No, for a non-audit engagement. Now, if you're invited to a service from a client, consider this very carefully. Let me make 2 columns like this, and let me write over here new client, invitation, and invitation from an existing client. Now, if a new client is inviting you to review the PFI because you have no idea about the new client, and this is the first time you're interacting with a new client, so you need to perform a client screening check. And you need to affirm that the new client is good or bad, which is offering you an engagement to review a PFI. If it is an existing client, then there is no need to check the client screening. Second, if you are invited to review the PFI from a new client, you will also be checking the competence level, whether the audit firm has a competence level to review a PFI, whether the audit firm has ever performed a review of PFI. So you will be looking at your competence level as an audit firm, whether the audit firm is competent versus the nature of service So this matter will be common whether it's the new client or it's an existing client. Even if the request has come from the existing client, you will look at your competence level versus the nature of service, because for every nature of service you offer, the competence level needs to be there. So audit is one service, non-audit is another service. So you need to check your competence level. Then you need to check the deadlines given, whether the deadlines given by the company are realistic enough to complete the work with quality, or the deadlines given to you are unrealistic to complete the work. And this will be the same in both the cases. Then you also need to check the intended users. Who are intended users who will rely on the report of the auditor on the review of the PFI? So when the auditor publishes a report on PFI, who will be relying on the report? So you should know the intended users, because the intended users will increase your liability as an auditor. Intended user. You should also be knowing that if you are invited for a review of PFI, what is the purpose of PFI? What is the purpose of PFI? You should know this when you are accepting it. What is the purpose of PFI? Whether the management wants to use the PFI internally, or whether the management wants to publish the PFI externally, because that will again increase the liability of an auditor. We know management even management even get a review of PFI for internal PFIs like budgets, but management even to get a review of PFI for something external like obtaining a stock market listing. And for obtaining a stock market listing, they ask the auditor to review their future P&L to be published to the potential investor. So that is external. If the auditor is performing a PFI for your going concern assessment, management wants to review whether the company is a going concern or not. That itself is a PFI, because in going concern, you're looking into the foreseeable future. So that is also internal. Yes, exactly. If you're taking a bank loan, then that is external. So if the purpose of PFI is external, will that increase the liability of the auditor? Will the auditor need to be more skeptical when he's performing an external PFI? But the purpose of PFI is external. Will you need to be more alert? So at the time of accepting, you need to consider, just give me 1 minute, sorry. You need to consider whether the purpose is internal or external. Then you need to consider the fees. What fees will you get? Is it a good enough fees to accept? Are we paid well? Are we not paid well? So we need to consider the fees before deciding whether we should be accepting this engagement or not. So there are lots of matters which you should consider when the client is inviting you. You should also be considering the time period of PFI. What is the time period of PFI? For example, management has asked you to review the cash flow forecast. What is the time period of cash flow forecast? What if the management has prepared a cash flow forecast for 5 years? Do you believe if the management has prepared a cash flow for 5 years, will it be risky for the auditor to review it, because 5 years means a lot of uncertainty? So if the time period of a PFI increases, will that increase the burden on the auditor? Will that increase the pressure on the auditor to be more skeptical in reviewing the assumptions? So the time period of PFI will be another very, very important factor in deciding whether to accept the engagement or not. And then again, the last bullet, there might be some ethical issues given in the case study. Whether it is a new client or whether it is an existing client, there could be some ethical issues if given in case study, which you need to evaluate if given in case. So the case might tell you some ethical issues. If given, then you will explain the ethical issues. There can be certain ethical issues with existing client as well as the new client, because ethical issues cannot be rote learned. They are given in the exam paper. So are you clear with the list on the left and the right? So everything is the same with the exception of the first one. So if it is a new client, then you need to be concerned about a screening check, which is not the case with an existing client. Rest remains the same. Are you all clear? Okay, let's take the last perspective and start with an exam question, March 2020. Procedures. Now, procedures have been a very focal topic, and in my numerous webinars, I have covered procedures as part of this practice to pass sessions. But during this webinar, I didn't touch upon procedures, so I just want to take a quick recap of procedures and then connect that with the topic today. Now, when you look at procedures, we know there is an exam technique article available, which is known as part 4 of exam techniques, and that is on audit procedures, right? You can read this article, and this article will really boost your confidence of how you write and audit procedures, whether on whichever topic the examiner is asking for procedures. First thing. Now, when you read this article tells you what is a definition of a good procedure. What is the definition of a good procedure, or what is a prerequisite of a good procedure? Now, a good procedure, according to examiner, is a one which is case specific. You need to look into the case. You need to look into the information in the case to decide what procedure will you be making. So it has to be case specific, right? Number one. Number two, A good procedure should start with an action. A procedure cannot be without action. Then a good procedure should have a source or should have a subject matter on which you are performing a procedure. And finally, a good procedure should have an objective or should have a purpose. Now, if you have attended my previous webinars, I've been very focal on this mnemonic, and I always use this mnemonic, and this is known as a good procedure is equal to CASP, case, action, source, purpose. And I've illustrated that so many times in my previous webinar. Please do watch it, and please do read the article Exam Techniques, Part 4, Audit Procedure. Now let me connect this CASP with the topic we are doing today, which is review of prospective financial information. Now imagine one thing. When you look at a case, and the case is for review of prospective financial information, right? What will be given to you in the case? In the case, what will be given to you? The case will consist of, number one, the assumptions used by the management. Am I right? The case will consist of a forecast given, right? You will have a forecast, whatever the forecast is, right? Whether it is a cash flow forecast or it is a P&L forecast, whatever. So in the case, you will be given a forecast, and the forecast will be accompanied with, notes. So the forecast will have some notes. Forecast will be accompanied with notes, that is assumptions or basis used in preparing forecast. Now the management must have taken a lot of assumptions about the future. The management must have taken assumptions about something increasing in future, something decreasing in future. Management might have taken an assumption of something, you must be acquiring something in the future. Management must have taken an assumption that you might be taking a bank loan in the future. So there might be lots of assumptions the management have taken about the future events. So assumptions or basis used in preparing forecast will be given. Now, when you look at this sort of a structure of a case, and without even looking at the March 20 paper, which we will be looking at, let's do something very journalized here. Now, if I look at a forecast, probably I would be thinking about procedures, which includes, number one, review the arithmetical accuracy. Review the arithmetical accuracy of the forecast, because there are so many numbers in the forecast, it could be wrong. Review the arithmetical accuracy of the forecast by casting the forecast. So you should cast the forecast. I hope you agree with casting. Casting means to check the plus and minus. So you cast the forecast to ensure there is an arithmetical accuracy. So that is the first procedure. The second procedure you can do on a PFI is, because the PFI is the future, and the future is based upon historical, right? So you can review the consistency of accounting policies used. You can check the consistency of the accounting policies used in preparation of the forecasted financial information. Now, whether you are preparing historical financial information or you are preparing forecasted financial information, the accounting policies plays a very crucial part. It could not be the case that your historical policies are different and your prospective policies are different. So if you are making a prospective P&L, should the revenue recognition policy be the same as of the historical financial statement? If you are making a prospective P&L, so the accounting treatments or the accounting policies should remain the same, right? So accounting policy is not changed. So your revenue recognition criteria will not change, whether you are preparing an historical financial statement or you're preparing a prospective financial information, right? Arsalan, you give an answer no, which is a very distracting answer. Is everyone clear with the point number 2? So there should be a consistency of the accounting policies, because accounting policies remains the same whether you are preparing the historical financial statements or you are using the same accounting policies to predict the future. Yes, in the point number 1, we are just confirming the casting of the forecast, because forecast have numbers plus minus plus minus plus minus. We're just checking the casting. This plus this is equal to this. So casting is just an arithmetical check of the forecast, just to ensure that there is no arithmetical inaccuracy in the forecast. So these are journal procedures on the forecast, right? Which you can make. You can review the arithmetical accuracy. You can review the consistency of the accounting policies. That's something journalized. And there could be more journal procedures when we look at the case study of the March 2020 paper. Now, apart from that, you have assumptions used in preparing the forecast. Now, a lot of time, your procedure in the case of a PFI will be discussing with management, because you need to discuss with management a lot of time the reasons or the basis of estimates used. So a lot of time you need to go to the management and you need to discuss with management what is the basis of the estimates you use. What is the rationale behind the basis used in making this estimate? So a lot of time you need to do discussions with management. You need to find the reasons, you need to find the basis of the estimate used by management. So you need to have a lot of discussions, a lot of inquiry with the management. The purpose, Adnan, of the second procedure is to review the consistency. Consistency is the purpose, right? And arithmetical accuracy is the purpose of the first procedure, right? These are journal procedures, right? Okay, you will discuss with management a lot of time the reasons, the basis of the estimates used by management. You will be asking them why. A lot of time you will be asking them why, just to be sure that the basis or the basis of the estimates are right. You might need to do a lot of recalculations when you are reviewing the prospective financial information, because the management must have developed a number for the future. So can you develop a number for the future based on the basis of the estimates used by the management? So if the management has used a 20% growth model for revenue, so can you multiply the historical sales with a growth model of 20% to find the next year number? So can you do the recalculations of the numbers in the PFI on the basis of the assumptions taken by the management, everyone? So can there be a lot of recalculations? So recalculations of the numbers used in forecast. So if the management has calculated the future finance cost, so can you recalculate the future finance cost on the basis of these assumptions used by the management? If the management has taken some decisions about future events, can you review the board minutes for any decisions taken by the management about future? Review board minutes about future events and about future events. Approvals. So there could be something in the case study where you need to have the approvals. And because there are assumptions used in forecast, so as a last procedure, you can seek a representation letter from the management. You can seek a representation letter from the management on the completeness and on the appropriateness of the assumptions. So as a last resort, you can take a representation letter in the exam paper. So if you are making 9 procedures, the 9th procedure can be seek a representation letter. So these are some fundamental procedures you can think about when you're writing procedures on PFI. You can recalculate numbers in the PFI. You can review the arithmetical accuracy of PFI. You can check the consistency of the accounting policies in PFI. You can discuss a lot of things with management. You can review the board minutes if needed in the case study. And you can seek a representation letter. Is that clear? And you can even analyze, you can even analyze the historical trends. You can even analyze the historical trends versus uh, the future trends taken by management. For example, when you analyze the historical trends of sales, the historical trends of sales is 20%. But when the management is making the forecast, the future trend they've taken in sales is 30%. So will you discuss with management that the historical trends of revenue is 20, but the future trend you are taking about the increase in sales is 30? Why? So if the future trend is different from the historical trend, if there is a difference between an historical trend and a future trend, will you discuss the reasons of that with management? Is equal to discuss reasons for same. Agree? So this is just a thought process, right? Which is moving around the topic PFI in terms of writing a good procedure. So you should be sound on procedures. You should look into the case study to develop a procedure. Let's look at the case study now and let's start to find the procedures. Okay, let me open the March 20 question with you and I'll be telling you the marking scheme as well. Okay, can you all see the question paper March 20 in front of you? This is the question number 3A. Can you all see the question number 3A in a PDF form? The March 20 paper is not available on the practice platform, right? So you need to look it into the PDF and then you can solve it on the blank workspace if you want, right? So this is the March 20 paper in front of you, the question number 3A. Now let's start to do the analysis of what exactly this question is asking. You go down to question 3A. See, the management has given you a cash flow forecast here for a 12-month period. So how long is the cash flow forecast? Just for 1 year. You go down and look at the requirements on the next page. There are two requirements. The B requirement is not on PFI, right? So leave that out. Look at the first requirement, A1 and A2. Let me copy these requirements with you on the Word file so we can start the analysis of the March 2020 paper. So let's start with March 2020, question number 3A and the requirements. Now, when you copy the requirements of the March 2020 paper, because the very first thing you need to do in exam is to understand the requirement. Otherwise, you will make a lot of blunder if you don't read the requirements carefully. Now, first thing first, you look at the requirement 3A. Let me take it on the fresh page because we're already running out of space here. Okay, let's start here, March 20. The first requirement, explain the matters. Which matters? Examiner clarifies. Explain the matters to be considered by Moritz and Company, which is the audit firm, before accepting the engagement. So we need to consider the matters before accepting the engagement to review and report on Levenza prospective financial information. So whether we will be accepting the engagement or not, we need to consider the matters before accepting the engagement to review the prospective financial information. I'll be giving you the marking scheme. How many marks will you be writing? How many points you will be writing for a 6 marks answer. Next, assuming Moritz and Company accepts the engagement. Let's assume you have accepted the engagement. Recommend the procedures. Recommend the procedures you should be making on the cash flow forecast. And examiner has given us 9 marks for making the procedures. Now let's look at the marking scheme and start reading the case study. Marking scheme. Now when you look at the marking scheme, there are two parts here, 1 and 2. Now when you look at the marking scheme for 1, which is the matters before accepting an engagement on PFI, each matter is worth 1 mark. So you have 6 marks. So you need to write 6 matters. And every matter needs to be explained up to a reasonable length. Then you look at the second part. You need to make procedures. wherever you make procedures in AAA paper, procedure, each is worth 1 mark. So that means in totality, now what you need to do, let's start on with a brainstorming session. That means in the first part 1, we have 6 marks that is divided by 1 mark each. So we are writing 6 matters. Then in the second part, we have 2. We have 9 marks divided by 1 mark each. So we are writing 9 procedures. Is that clear to all of you? So planning and reading and planning is the most important thing you do in a AAA paper. Now, there are less chances you will do mistake when you write up the answer. Should we start the case? Is everyone ready set for that? Have you understood the marking scheme? Okay, great. Let's go back to the case study. Okay, look at the case. Okay, can you just read the first 2 paragraphs so we can identify the matters before accepting the engagement? Can you just read the first 2 paragraphs quickly in front of your screen? From it is the 1st of July and read up to 30th of June. Okay, you have 3 minutes to read it and see if you can identify some matters. I will not speak for next 3 minutes. Your time starts now. Okay, if you have you read it from the 1st of July to the 30th of June, everyone? Okay, let me copy this for you and let me take it to my Word file here. Let's do the brainstorming and let's identify the 6 matters. Okay, just give me 1 minute. I just want to arrange this paragraph. So once you get this file on the WhatsApp group, you can take a printout of this and you can easily maintain this as your proper notes. I hope these Word files really help you at the end of the session. Okay, let's start looking at the matters. It is the 1st of July. You are a manager in Moritz and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountant which offers a range of service to audit and non-audit client. Which offers Moritz and Company, which offers range of service to audit client. Offers range of service. So Control C, highlight in a computer-based exams, and you Control C and you bring your meta down as the first meta, and you say Control V, offers range of services. Does that mean that we are eligible, we are competent? Just give me 1 minute, sorry. Let me first copy the points and then I'll ask you why I have copied this point. Number 1 point, range of services, right? That's number 1 point. Okay, number 2. Your firm has been asked to consider the potential engagement to review and provide an assurance on the PFI. So you need to consider the potential engagement. Consider potential engagement. Control C, Control V. So we need to consider the potential engagement. I'll ask you why I copied this point. To provide an assurance report for Levenza company, which is not an audit client of your firm. So it is not an audit client of our firm, right? However, Moritz and Company has already conducted specific client identification procedures in line with money laundering regulations with satisfactory result. So audit firm has conducted specific client identification procedure already. So have they performed the client screening already? Control C, Control V. Because it was a new client, and being a new client, they have performed the client screening procedure. Next paragraph. Levenza has approached your firm in order to obtain an independent assurance opinion on the cash flow forecast which is prepared for its banker, which forecast which is prepared for the banker, intended user, Control V, forecast which is prepared for its banker, in support of an application for an increase in its existing overdraft facility. Now, is there a chance that there is a risk that to get the loan from the banker, you might have manipulated your cash inflows? You must have overstated your cash inflows and you must have understated your cash outflows. Is there a chance of that? Right? Okay. And what is the time period covered by the cash flow forecast? It's for a 12-month to 30th of June. So the time period covered by the forecast is the 12 months to June 30th. So that is the information we have available from the case study, and you paste it. Now let's see how would I develop my 6 marks answer. And now keep yourself on the chat box. I'll be asking you quick questions and you need to reply me. Let's start first. Do the audit firm have competence to offer services to Levenza? Do Moritz and Company have competence? Because it says offers a range of service. So I'll take my first point and I'll convert my first point into a 1 mark answer. Offers range of services, and I write under. Moritz is a well diversified firm, which offers range of services to their clients, which means that the firm do have the desired level of competence to perform the review of prospective financial information of Levenza Company. Right? So you develop a point in favor of Moritz. So Moritz is a well-diversified firm which offers range of services to their client, which means that the firm do have the desired level of competence and specialization to perform the review of prospective financial information. That is it, and you score your 1 mark. Next, consider the potential engagement. So you are getting a potential engagement. Control C. Your next point, Control V. Potential engagement. Now, if I want to offer this potential engagement, is that an opportunity for me to offer this potential engagement as Moritz? So will I be concerned about, number one, my fees for this potential engagement? And number two, because I'm offering this potential engagement, will I be concerned about the deadlines? Because the question is silent about the deadlines. So will I need to consider them when I am accepting the engagement? If the deadlines aren't realistic, what will happen? Client screening has already been done, right? I'll come to that point later. I'm looking at the point potential engagement. So first thing I will write under potential engagement is fees. So under the fees, I will write Moritz needs to carefully decide upon the level of fees to be charged, to Levenza for this engagement, considering the scope of the work, and considering the scope of the work to be performed on cash flow forecast and the associated risk in the cash flow forecast, considering the need to obtain a bank loan. So can there be a risk of management bias in cash flow forecast? So should the auditor consider that at the end at the back of the mind when deciding the fees level, considering the need to obtain a bank loan? So you need to carefully decide your fees level. Number one, deadlines. The question is silent on the deadline, so you write it journally. Moritz also need to consider any deadlines from Levenza management in order to ensure whether the engagement can be accepted or not. If the deadlines proposed by the company is realistic, the audit firm will proceed with the engagement and accordingly decide on the number of resources to be used in relevance to the deadline. So if the deadline is very strict, you can add up on the resources. If the deadline is very relaxed, you can take less resources. So you need to consider your resources as well when you look at the deadline, when you discuss the deadline with the management of Levenza. So see, I pick up a point, offer a range of service. I pick up a point, potential engagement, and under the potential engagement, I wrote 2 points. Number one, fees, and number two, deadlines. But when I was writing my answer, I hope you have noticed one thing. I used this word Moritz, I used this word Levenza multiple times because when you are writing a case specific answer, you cannot generally use the word audit firm and company, audit firm and company, audit firm and company. In order to make your case specific, you should write the name of the company and the audit firm. Last point, and then you continue yourself. Consider the potential engagement gone. The next point is Moritz and Company has already conducted the client identification procedure. Next point. So have the audit firm already performed the client acceptance, client screening procedure being a new audit client? So will we appreciate this point? Will we tell examiner this was much needed and this will really help Moritz in deciding to continue the engagement? So see, you cannot write Moritz and Company should perform a client screening procedure. That will be wrong. That will be wrong, right? So when there is a positive point, you will appreciate that when you are writing the matters to consider, right? So this is a positive point, so you'll appreciate. Is this point relevant in your outcome of the decision? Tell me, Arsalan and Hamza, is this point relevant in deciding your outcome to decide? So is that an important point? Yes. So let's appreciate that. Being a new audit client, Moritz has already performed the client screening procedures, the results of which are favorable. This means the results of which are favorable, which means there is nothing wrong in Moritz accepting this particular engagement. So was this an important point in your decision to accept this engagement? So you're appreciating that. You're saying, which means there is nothing wrong in Moritz accepting this particular engagement, and the overall risk of accepting a bad client has been reduced as appropriate procedures for client screening was undertaken. So is there any engagement risk here? Is there any engagement risk? Has the client passed the engagement risk procedure? So are we taking on a good client or a bad client? So the risk of accepting a bad client has been reduced because the good procedures have been performed. So is there something wrong in accepting this client? No. So is this an important point which is favoring our outcome of the decision? So should we appreciate this point? But if a student writes in the exam paper, Moritz and company should perform a client screening procedure, will that be the right student answer? Because the procedure has been performed. You need to justify why this procedure was important in the decision you are taking, right? Okay, so this is another 1 mark. The last one, and then you draft your own answer. Forecast is prepared for the banker. Copy, Control C, and you write the answer. Forecast is prepared for a banker. Is that important? Forecast is prepared for banker? Because, Moritz needs to confirm with Levenza that apart from bank, are there any other potential intended are there any other potential intended users of the report which will be published by the audit firm? This will help decide the of auditor level of liability. This will help decide the level of liability which can arise on the audit firm, and this will also help the audit firm perform the review with a greater skepticism to reduce exposure to any negligence, right? So when you know who will rely on the financial statements, yes, you need to find the points from the scenario, right? And you need to convert those points in favor, whether you will be accepting the engagement or not. Some points can be in favor, as like the client identification process already conducted. Some point can be against. So you need to find the points from the case study which are in favor or against your decision to accept this engagement, right? So is everyone clear with the forecast which is being prepared for its banker point? So apart from the bankers, is there any other party which will rely on the financial statements or the auditor report, and you need to exercise greater skepticism? So is everyone clear with the way I picked the points and wrote the points? So should you know the journal list of the matters when accepting an engagement? Yes, but you should carefully adapt that list to the case study, right? So the final perspective you should know as a student note, you should know the list. You should know the list of matters in accepting an engagement, and in the exam paper, you should tailor the list according to the case presented to you. If you tailor the list, you are a good student. So I picked up the point from the case study. I just used one journal point, which was a deadline. And I thought because it's a potential engagement, so deadline will be very important. So I put the deadline in context of the case study. Is everyone clear? And is everyone clear with the marking scheme of matters? Are you clear on how you pick it up and how you write it up? Okay, that's great. Let's look at the last perspective and then take a break and start with exam tips and techniques. Let's look at the procedures. Now, if I show you the case study back, see the case study. You have a cash flow forecast in front of you, which is prepared for 1 year. So this cash flow forecast is prepared for 30th of June 20x6, and currently it's the 1st of July. So management has prepared the cash flow forecast for 1 year using a quarterly approach. So the first forecast quarter is 30th of September. So 30th of September is the first quarter forecast, then 31st of December, then 31st of March, and then 30th of June. So they have broken the forecast into quarterly basis. So there are 4 quarters making up the year, right? Now, in the forecast, they have the cash receipts, which is inflow. And in the forecast, they have the payments, the cash payments. These are forecasted payments, right? Which will happen in future. Has any payment happened now? No. These payments will happen in future. Receipts, these receipts will come in future. You need to keep in mind, because a lot of times the student, when answering a PFI question, answer as if these are historical. Next, other cash flows. The other cash flows include 2 very specific things. Initial cost for a new high street shop. So the initial cost for the new high street shop has been incurred, has been put as another cash flow, negative cash flow. And online marketing campaign. So there will be an online marketing campaign, and you've taken the figures. So you have cash receipts, you have cash payments for purchase of inventory, cash payments for salaries, cash payments for overheads. You have receipts from cash sales, you have receipts from cash sales online, and you have receipts from the credit sales. Cash flow for the period. So cash flow for the period, first quarter is negative. So your forecasted cash flow is negative for the first quarter. Opening cash. Opening cash is 9193. Opening cash is 9193, and the closing cash becomes 13407. Tell me, can we cast the cash flow forecast? Is there a need to cast this cash flow forecast? Because there can be some arithmetical inaccuracies, right? Clear? Okay. Is there a need to review the accounting policies for different items like purchase of inventory, salaries, overheads, and they should be consistent with your prior year financial statements? Okay. Is there a need to verify the opening cash from the cash book or from the bank statement? Is opening cash something historical? Can the opening cash be verified to the bank statement or a cash book? So the opening cash can be verified, because the opening cash is on the 30th of June 20x5. So you can verify the opening cash. Now look at the amounts of receipts and payments they have, right? Let's see the assumptions. Can you look at the assumptions taken by the management here? The following information is also relevant. Look at the assumptions given to you by the examiner. So many assumptions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you need to make 9 procedures, which is not difficult. Because if you start making procedures and you need to make 9 procedures, you can easily make 3 quick procedures. First, you can start with review the you can start with cast the arithmetical accuracy of the cash flow forecast prepared by Levenza, right? Number 1. Number 2, you can agree the opening cash balance. You can agree the opening cash balance of what? You need to make it case specific, right? So you need to take the proper terminologies from the case. Opening cash balance of 9.193 million, 9.193 million of dollar 9.193 million to the cash book or bank statement. So you need to agree that the opening cash balance is rightly carry forward. So you will agree the opening cash balance to the cash book. So agree and cast. You will also review the consistency of the accounting policies. Review the consistency of accounting policies used by Levenza in preparing the cash flow forecast to ensure there is no change of accounting policies, to ensure there is no change of accounting policies, right? So something like that. You start with 3. Now you got 3 procedures here, and you then write the last procedure, which is seek a representation letter from Levenza management to confirm the appropriateness of assumptions used in preparing the cash flow forecast. Have I used the right terminologies from the case, like Levenza management, like cash flow forecast, like $9.193 million? Does it seems like I'm writing generic procedures if I use terminologies like 9.93 million, Levenza? If I use terminologies like Levenza, if use terminologies like cash flow forecast, Levenza, so does it make it more specific to the case, even though we are writing generic procedures? But there has to be a common sense when you're writing a journal procedure. Now 3 and 4, you give space, and you need to write 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this last procedure, seek a representation letter, will basically be the 9th procedure, right? So you need to fill 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, everyone? So you need to have skill. You need to have skill even to write journal procedure. So you need to have intelligence even to write journal procedures. So let's go back and let's fill some of them here and wrap up this topic. Okay, now look at the case study. I'll just pick some of them. Look at the first one. Second one, Levenza company receives a settlement discount from its principal supplier of 8% if it pays within 14 days of the receipt of inventory. Can this be confirmed from the supplier agreement that Levenza receives a settlement discount from its potential principal suppliers? So can we review the contracts with principal supplier to confirm that they do get an 8% discount? Will this be written in the contracts? So can this be confirmed to the source document? Can we confirm this to the source document, this point? So can this point be confirmed to the source document? This one. So, and when you pay late, you have to pay a penalty of 5%. So can we confirm the penalty of 5% and a discount of 8% to the supplier contracts? Okay, let's go back and write the next point. This is a case specific point. So can we review contracts with principal suppliers? See, I'm using the terminology of the case, principal supplier. I'm not saying major supplier. I'm using principal supplier because that's the word used. Review the contract with principal suppliers of to confirm the terms of 8% discount and 5% penalty to ensure these are right terms. These are right terms, and the same has been used in preparing the cash flow forecast, and the same has been used in preparing the cash flow forecast. So you review the contract with the principal supplier. See, case specific. Principal supplier is a terminology in the case. 8% is the terminology in the case, and 5% is the terminology in the case. So I tried developing this procedure in context of the case study. Next, you go back to the case again. So we have covered the bullet number 2, just an idea. You can make more procedures from the bullet number 2 back at home. The next, Levenza management is planning an online marketing campaign. So if they're planning an online marketing campaign for future, will they have any marketing plan in place? Will they have any marketing budget in place which can be seen? Can there be a marketing budget? Can there be a marketing plan which tells us the type of marketing you want to do, the medium of marketing you want to do, when you do marketing? So will there be a marketing plan? Can there be a marketing plan? Can there be a board approval for this marketing campaign which you will do in future? And this marketing plan will increase the market share by 3%. Do we discuss with the management the basis why they believe this marketing campaign will increase the market share by 3%? Because this is the basis, right? If the market share increase by 3%, will your forecast sales increases? And if your forecast sales increases, will that increase the cash receipt? And is there a risk that the management can overstate the cash receipt because they want to take a bank loan? Right? So Levenza management is planning an online marketing campaign. Online marketing campaign planning. So we can review the marketing plan. We can review the marketing plan for the potential or for the prospective marketing campaign, for the prospective marketing campaign planned by Levenza to understand the basis of the marketing plan, to understand the basis of the marketing plan. So how effective this marketing campaign would be? Can we review the marketing plan to understand the basis used for marketing for the prospective marketing campaign planned by Levenza, to understand the basis of to understand how realistic the market plan is to increase market share by 3%, to market share by 3%. How much are we spending on the marketing plan? How much are we spending on the marketing plan? Initial online marketing campaign. How much are we spending on the online marketing campaign? 624, 431, 386, and 278. Can you plus them? Can you plus them, all of them? 624, 431, 386, and 278. Can you plus all of them together quickly? In total, how much are we planning to spend on the online marketing campaign? $1.719. Okay, $1.7 million, $1.719 million online. Can we discuss with the management why have they chosen the online medium? Can we discuss the basis of choosing the medium of marketing as online? Can we ask this to the management? Why have you chosen an online medium of marketing? Even though online is good, even though online is the number one source of marketing, social media, but do we need to just find the justification of management behind online? What if they need to advertise on billboard because they must have got a better audience on billboard? What if they need to advertise in a newspaper because the better audience was in the newspaper? So should we know the soundness of online? Should we know the soundness of the decision? So should we discuss the basis of choosing the medium of marketing as online, just to confirm the soundness, just to confirm the soundness of the medium chosen, of the medium chosen? Can we review the board minutes, or can we review the marketing budget to confirm the approval? Sorry, we can review the board minutes to confirm the approval of the marketing budget of $1.719 million. You found this answer right for me. Review the board minutes to confirm the approval of the marketing budget of $1.79 million and the rationale behind this amount. Why have the board approved this much amount? Do they believe this much amount is good enough to do the marketing and to increase the market share by 3%? So see, you need to read the situations given to you in the case. Like I read the 2 situation, I read the 4th situation. In the same way, you will read them out. The company has an existing overdraft facility of $12 million with its banker and has requested an increase facility of $17 million. Have you requested the banker for an increase? Can we review the correspondence between the company and the banker for the request? Can we review the request to understand whether the banker is in a mood of giving you $17 million or not? But will there be a bank loan agreement for $17 million yet? Will there be a bank loan agreement for $17 million yet? No, because we are currently in the phase of negotiations. So can we review the correspondence with the banker to understand whether the banker is willing to disperse this loan or not? Do they have any risk associated with dispersing this loan? So can we review the correspondence? So the bottom line is that you need to read the assumptions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There will be plenty in the assumptions for you to pick out and convert them into making sound procedures. You can also use the numbers. You can also analyze the numbers. You can find the increase and decrease in numbers. If you think some numbers are unusual, you can also make a procedure on that. You can analyze the number, and if there is any significant increase or decrease in the numbers, you can discuss that with the management. Is that clear to all of you? You can find the percentage by which the operating cash receipts are increasing, and you can find the percentage by which operating cash payments are increasing. If the management is fabricating the cash flow, the percentage rise of cash receipt will be more, and the percentage rise of the cash payments will be less, right? So you can find lots of unusual things in the numbers which you can comment on. So at the end of the day, you need to make 9 procedures. If you can start first with some journal procedures, but I hope you got a common sense of writing the journal procedure, how I tailor made the journal procedures for all of you. Then the last procedure can be a representation. Then you can fill in the procedures, right? Suppose you wrote 3 journal procedures and 1 representation, that's 4. You need to write 9. So then you can make 5 procedures from the assumptions given to you in the cash flow forecast. Right? Is everyone clear? So have you found this topic effective? Have you gained something from this topic PFI in terms of this recent paper? And will you be able to complete the rest of the answer yourself? Have you got the guidance? Have you got the right guidance in the right manner? And will you utilize this in completing not just this paper, but also other papers on PFI? So this was it. We spent exactly half the time of the session today on the topic review of prospective financial information. And now we are taking a break. And after we meet from the break, the focus will shift on looking at the examiner report of the same paper we just did. So we'll look at the examiner report of the March 2020 exams, and we'll see what is the examiner comment on the question on PFI. So if there is anything we can learn from the examiner comment, that would be great. And then that will mark the end of the topic PFI. And after that, we'll start discussing the tips to pass the September 21 exams. Right? Is that clear? Okay, let's take a break. It's like psychologically 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. in Pakistan. So let's resume back by 10:15 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, right? And then spend the remaining time of the class of the webinar on how to pass September 21 exams, right? Let's start the proceedings at 10:15. Has everyone noted the break? The break is till 10:15. Break is till 10:15 p.m., right? I'm just sending this to all of you. Okay, I'm just muting myself and I'll resume back in 15 minutes from now. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Please do confirm that as we start with the last part of the final day of this webinar. Okay, thank you very much for confirming that, all of you. Let's start on with the proceedings. Let's start the final proceeding on this very final day of the webinar. Now, I think I recommended you this approach every day, that whenever and whatever question you do at home, please ensure that you read the examiner report of the same question so you can find some constructive criticism within the examiner report. Now, we were looking at the March 20 paper, and just to focus on the question number 2 we were looking at from the paper. Question number 2. Sorry, it was question number 3. Question number 3, right? Right over here. Can you all see the question number 3 in the examiner report in front of your screen now? Okay, that's great. Let's start discussing the perspective. The question was 25 marks, compulsory question, focused on acceptance decision to review the prospective financial information and a procedures on a cash flow forecast. Requirement A1 for 6 marks. Requirement A1 for 6 marks required candidates to explain the matters to be considered before accepting the PFI engagement. This was a requirement where candidates would be expected to score highly. So examiner says this is a requirement where candidates can score highly and overall did achieve good marks. The only noticeable point from candidates' answer related to the consideration of the client due diligence to be considered, as the question clearly stated that this has already been performed. So see the same problem I was discussing with you, that if you write that we should perform the client screening, that would be wrong. So examiner is saying that a lot of students consider conducting a client due diligence, which was wrong because already the client due diligence was performed. Therefore, where discussed as a consideration, credit would not be available, right? So if something has already been given to you in the exam paper and you just repeat that same thing, like examiner is saying the client screening has been performed and you say the auditor should perform the client screening procedure, you will not get any marks for that. Yes, you can appreciate the fact that the client screening procedure has been performed. This means there is nothing wrong in accepting the client. That is a very good development of a point. Requirement A2 for 9 marks required candidates to recommend procedures to be performed on the cash flow forecast. Overall, candidates made a good attempt at this requirement and scored well. It was disappointing to see a small number of candidates answer the requirement using only analytical procedure. So if you only use the analytical procedure, no other procedure, that will be a very wrong approach to answering a PFI. See, we answered so many procedures and we didn't use analytical. You can use analytical, but not all the procedures should be analytical. So examiner is saying small number of candidates answer, you only use analytical procedure, that is calculating trends and ratios, as this alone did not answer the requirement. So if you just say, okay, I'll do 9 analytical procedures, that is not good, right? So you can do analytical procedures, but not all 9 procedures should be analytical, right? That is not what the examiner is liking. Okay, then comes the requirement B. We didn't solve the requirement B. So I think the only criticism to address is that don't repeat a point the examiner has already mentioned in the case study, just like the client screening. But if you appreciate that point and you justify the point, you will still be getting 1 mark for that. And more importantly, you should not just focus on analytical procedures alone, because examiner is saying it was disappointing to see small number of students only writing analytical procedures in a PFI answer. So that completes the end of PFI. That marks the end of my first agenda item, which was to review the PFI. Now I'm moving towards the last exercise today, exam tips and techniques. I hope you're all ready for that, because that's really, really important. Now, over the last 5 days, I have been with you and you have been with me. You must have learned a lot and you must have gained a lot, right? But now is the time to recap, and it's the time to reinforce, and it's the time to implement. What will you be doing in the September 2021 exams? September 2021 exams, how to excel. How would you excel in the September 2021 exams? That's a big question, knowing the fact that the passing rate of the AAA paper is just around 32 or 33%. That means substantial number of students fail the AAA paper. The purpose of this webinar, as always, have been to guide you on the right track, to give you the right tips, to give you the right techniques every day over the 5 days, to make sure that you don't do the silly mistakes which results in a failure of the student. It is commendable that these webinars, since they have started, have really benefited a broader student community for the AAA, and lots of students have passed their AAA exams in the first exam sitting just by taking the 15 hours of the webinar. So you can be one of them in September 2021 exams. So you need to motivate yourself. You have 1 month before exams. Today is the 7th of August and you have exams on the 6th of September. So you have 1 month, which is a very, very good time to do lots of things. You don't have very less time, right? And you cannot complain about the less time, because as of today, when this webinar is being finished off, as of today, you have a full 30 days before exams. Now that's a lot. If you are zero today and you believe that I've only attended the 15 hour of the webinar, but my preparation is zero, you can still do wonder in these 30 days. 30 days, if you get the right timetable, you get the right strategy, and you formulate an excellent timetable, you can pass the AAA paper with the efforts and exercise you do in 30 days. So first of all, motivate yourself that this is possible. And you are taking on a challenge, and you can only overcome the challenge if you have the right strategy put in place. So let's see what exactly you need to think about in this 30 days. Before I come to that specific agenda of what you should be doing inside the 30 days, let me guide you something very, very important. Now, obviously, it's very difficult for me as a tutor to sum up the best things you can do to pass a AAA paper, because over the 5 days and over my previous 13 webinars with ACCA, I've discussed so much that at times it's even very difficult to recall the tips and the techniques which I have given you in my previous webinar. And even every day I keep giving you tips and techniques. So it's very difficult to sum up the tips and techniques, and I might even forget some when I am summing up. But if you rewatch the webinar, that's wonderful for you. But I tried my best to focus on some critical aspects, starting from the very first one on your screen now. AAA question-wise time management. I will spend 5 minutes on this because I believe this is the difference between passing and failing the AAA paper. I think every time in every webinar and wherever I got an opportunity on my social media, I have been very vocal and very, very focal on the time management techniques for AAA paper. You can see a graph in front of your screen where a time management has been given for the question number 1, the question number 2, and the question number 3. When you look at this graph and you look at the yellow is the reading and planning time. So when you look at the question number 1, the reading and planning time for question number 1 is 24 minutes. When you look at the question number 2 and 3, the reading and planning time is 12 minutes. 12 minutes. And then what you see in the gray bar is the writing time. You have 73 minutes of a writing time for question number 1. You have equal 37 minutes of a writing time for question number 2 and question number 3. So for the first question, you have 24 minutes of the reading and planning time and 73 minutes of the writing time. That's like 97 minutes. And then for each of the other questions, you have 12 minutes of the reading and planning time and 37 minutes of writing time. That's 49 minutes per question. Now, this is extremely important. Why? Because I believe that it is very, very important that if you want to excel in the AAA exam, time management is crucial. Hundreds of students fail the AAA paper because they don't complete the paper. Now, time management is crucial because you need to invest a careful time on each question. You need to spend a careful time should be invested on each question. But you cannot say that I'll just complete one question and I'll put all my time on one question in a hope that one question will give you 50 out of 50. Never. In a hope that one question will give you 25 out of 25. Never. This is a theoretical paper. This is a subjective paper. This is a paper where there is a subjectivity. So you students are not so excellent that you gain 100 out of 100 marks. So you cannot say, okay, I complete 50% paper and I get 50 out of 50 and I'll pass the AAA paper. Never. You should a careful time should be invested on each question. The question number 1, the time you need to invest on the question number 1 is 97 minutes, not more than that. Now, what best you can do in 97 minutes, do it. What best? Suppose in 97 minutes, you complete the question number 1. Excellent. There is another student who completed in 97 minutes only 90% of the question number 1. Stop. Don't stretch to complete 100%. Whatever best you can do in 97 minutes, do. Whatever best you can do in 97 minutes, do it. Do it. But where 97 minutes end, stop. Where 97 minutes end, stop. And get to the next question. And you get to the question number 2 then, and question number 3 then. And for each of the question number 3, each of them, you have 49 minutes for question 2 and 49 minutes for question 3. Do the best in this time. Now, when you end the paper, you might say that within the 97 minutes and within the 49 minutes, I have done my best, but I've still managed to complete 90% of my paper. Believe me, you will pass. If you have attempted a good 90% paper and you have left a 10% paper, but you try to do whatever you can do best in 97 minutes and whatever you can do best in 49 minutes, you will pass. I think it's 1 in 10 student who complete a 100% paper. That is a proportion in AAA paper, right? 1 in 10 student complete 100% paper. So most of us will be among the 9 out of 10 students who almost complete 90% of the paper and still manage to pass the AAA exam. So if you overspend on any one question in a hope that you can pass, remember, never. Every question contributes to your success, and every question has an opportunity which can bring you closer to success. So write my words here. Every question contributes to your success, and every question has an opportunity which is bringing you closer to success. But if you ignore that question, you have lost that opportunity. Suppose you fail to attempt one full 25 marks question, and you fail to attempt 125 marks question, that means you solve 75% of the paper, and you when the result came out, you got 48 marks. See, out of 75 you got 48. Now you will regret yourself when the result come out, wishing you could have done the 25 marks question. So every question is important, but you should not overspend on one question. Don't overspend time on one question. Please. I'm again saying please, because students do that. So the first thing, which is very, very critical, is the time management. Please ensure you stick to time management and you practice within 1 month using the time management techniques. If you are not practicing using time management techniques, you will struggle on the day of exam, right? So you need to practice at home in the next 30 days using the time management I have guided you, right? That is very, very important. Now come to the next thing. Self-appraise. Self-appraise your answer and a constructive learning. Now, over the years, I've been teaching this AAA paper. I have reached a conclusion, at least. And I believe this conclusion in front of your screen is the best one. I was very consistent on this conclusion in my previous webinars, that this is the best way you can do your self-appraisal as a student. And this is the best way you can have a constructive learning as a student. Now understand this picture very carefully. Start from the left-hand side of this picture here. Start from here. Start from here, right? The first thing, when you sit down to study, you should download the 5 exam technique articles and you read each of the article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when you read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you should document your points on a piece of paper. From the exam technique article 1, you should document the points relating to ethics. From the exam technique article 2, you document the points relating to risk. From the exam technique article, you document the points relating to accounting issues. From the exam technique article part 4, you document the points relating to procedures. And from the exam technique article part 5, you document the points relating to reporting. Now that means once you have read these 5 articles and you've documented your points, you know how to write a good answer for ethics, for reporting, for procedures, for accounting issues, and for risk, which are 5 core areas of 100 marks paper. Can you get an exam sitting without any 5 of them? Never. These 5 are heavyweight of 100 marks paper. So read the exam technique article, the 5 of them, and document your points. You should do this within the next 2 to 3 days from now. Now, once you've done that, then the next step is to come to the past papers. The next step is to come to the past papers, right? Now listen to this very carefully. You start one past paper. Suppose you start from September 18, the first one, right? You open up the September 18 paper and you start to solve the September 18 paper at home within the time management. Now, once you have written the answer for September 18 paper, whether it's the answer for question number 1, 2, and 3, or it's for the whole paper. Now, once you have written the answer for September 18 paper and you got your answer on the practice platform, what you need to do now is that the moment you complete your answer, download the examiner answer. Download the examiner answer. You have your answer on the practice platform, right? Now download the examiner answer of September 18. What you need to do now, after you've downloaded the examiner answer, You need to match the point. You need to match the point in your answer with the point in the examiner answer. I'm again repeating, it is a point versus point matching. I'm not saying reconcile your answer with the examiner answer. I'm saying reconcile the point in your answer with the point in your examiner answer. Now, when I was writing an answer with you before the break on matters to consider in accepting the engagement, the point is basically the heading. The point is basically the heading. And under the heading, I develop my answer. So I should reconcile my points, which is basically the headings, with the examiner headings. And normally the examiner points is given in the marking scheme, which is at the end of the examiner answer. So at the end of the examiner answer, you find the marking scheme, and in the marking scheme, you have the points of the examiner. So where will you find the points of the examiner? In the examiner answer, but towards the end of the examiner answer, there is something known as a marking scheme. And in the marking scheme, you find the points of the examiner. So you reconcile your points with the examiner points. Percentage match with examiner. How many points match with examiner? Suppose 50% of them match with examiner. That's good. Even at the first time, if it is less than 50%, that's not bad. But if on average 50% of your points match with examiner points, then that's wonderful. Now, there will be some points which you wrote. There will be some points which you wrote which are not in the examiner answer. They are known as distinct points. So some of your points will get tallied with the examiner, like 50%, for example, which is good. But there might be some points which you wrote in the answer, and you are very confident about the points you wrote in the answer, but you didn't find them in the examiner answer. So you have some distinct points. Now, whether those distinct points are right or wrong, because you're doing your self-appraisal, then what you should do? Then, to confirm whether the distinct point you write was right or wrong, download the examiner report. Download the examiner report of the September 18 exam and open up the question number 1 from the examiner report. Suppose you solve the question number 1, right? Open up the examiner report for question number 1 and read it. Read it. While you will read the question number 1 examiner report, you will find lots of things in the examiner report which might agree with your distinct point and which might disagree with your distinct point. So after you read the examiner report, finally you document your learnings. You document your learnings from the September 18 exam paper. Now see how long this exercise is. So that means if I sit tomorrow on the 8th of August, I should have the September 18 past paper with me. I should have the September 18 examiner answer with me. I should have the September 18 examiner report with me. 3. And I start solving the September 18 past paper. Once it is solved, I'll open up the examiner answer. I'll go at the end of the examiner answer. I'll look at the marking scheme and see how many points in the marking scheme got agreed with my points. If it is 50% or more, that's good. But there will be some points in my answer which is not in the examiner answer. They are known as distinct points. Now, examiner says credit will be awarded for distinct points if you have justified them rightly. Now, whether my distinct point is right or wrong, I'll then open up the examiner report for September 18 and read the examiner report and find the criticism. If there is a distinct point which is criticized by the examiner in the report, then I have to cross it. But if there is a distinct point which the examiner appreciated in the examiner report, I will tick it. So finally, the September 18 paper will come to an end and I will have a final learning from September 18 in terms of the do's and don'ts. So once I complete the September 18 paper, for example, like this, see this. Once I complete the September 18 paper, I will have a final list of do's and don'ts. See, I after every paper, I'll make 2 columns on my Microsoft Word or on my with my pen and paper, and I'll write do's and I'll write don'ts. Now, from the examiner points and from the examiner report of September 18, I must have learned lots of do's. I must have learned lots of areas where the examiner must have said students did this well, and a lot of points where the examiner said weaker student or student should not do this. So I should maintain a list of do's and don'ts for every exam sitting. This will really help me. You start December 18 in the same manner. You do the June 19 in the same manner. You do the December 19 in the same manner. You do the March 20 in the same manner. You do the December 20 in the same manner. And you do the June 21 in the same manner. After the end of this exercise, you will have do's and don'ts, and that will really help you. You will know how much of my points get tally with the examiner answer. You will know the constructive criticism of the examiner. And at the end of the day, these do's and don'ts should be revised at least 1 week before the exam. So suppose you have exam on the 6th of September, start to revise them on the 1st of September. And once you revise the do's and don'ts, you are absorbing them in your mindset, and you will not be repeating the mistakes in your actual exam paper. Is everyone clear with this strategy? Is everyone clear with this strategy? Do you like this strategy on your screen now? So I hope you've carefully heard me in the last 10 minutes when I was just doing the analysis of this self-appraisal model. So there are 3 very important documents: exam technique article, 4, past papers, examiner answer, and examiner report. If you keep them 4 together, you will not fail the AAA paper. You will not fail the AAA paper. But if you are ignoring, or you are very casual on the reading of the exam technique article or the examiner report, there are high chances you will be among the 67% student who failed the AAA in the first attempt. So please try to implement this self-appraisal model. This is really, really beneficial and would really bring quality on the day of exam. Trust me, this will give you the passing in the first exam sitting if you follow this. Is everyone clear with this? Okay, let's go back to my Word file for the final tips and techniques. Okay, so this is just one analysis we did on time management first. Then I just did a technique with you on a self-appraisal. That was the second thing I just discussed with you, number 2. Now let's go down with the final tips and techniques. Now when you look at the final tips and techniques, and you are preparing yourself for the exams in September, right? I believe that you should reconcile yourself in the next 24 hours and ask a question to yourself where you stand as of the 8th of August, tomorrow. Do a self-appraisal of yourself, where you stand. Now, some of you must be studying from the last 1 month. Some of you must have started to study when the webinar started. Some of you must be planning to study after the webinar comes to an end. Every student will be unique, and you should perform your self-appraisal where you are standing today. So the very first thing you need to do is where you are at present, today. And then imagine where you want to be by the 6th of September. Where you want to be by the 6th of September. You want to complete your course by the 6th of September. You want to complete the core areas by the 6th of September. You want to read articles by the 6th of September. You want to do lots of things by the 6th of September, right? To pass the AAA paper. So you have to fill up the gap. Where you are at present, you are at at present you are on the 7th of August, where you want to be by the 6th of September. And now comes the most important question. That is how to get there. How will you ensure that you accomplish your target by the 6th of September? And that's what I am focusing on, how to get there. What strategy you should have in place, what strategy to put in place, which is very, very good for September 21 exams in the next 30 days. In the next 30 days. Now, one of the strategy has already been given to you, right? Practice papers from September 18 to June 21, and ensure when you are practicing the papers, you should read examiner answers, the marking scheme, and the examiner report so that you know the do's and don'ts. Now let's go one by one in each one of them. When you look at the AAA paper and you're planning yourself to pass, you know that the AAA paper consists of 3 questions, right? The AAA paper consists of 3 questions. And I need to ensure that I am taking command of the 3 questions. Consist of 3 questions. Ensure you take control of the 3 questions in the next 30 days. In next 30 days. Now, one approach can be that you do papers on a paper-wise basis. Suppose you do the September 18 paper, complete it. You do the December 18 paper, complete it. You do the June 19 paper, complete it. You do the December 19 paper, complete it. That's one approach already given to you. Else, you say, I want to control the AAA paper in the next 30 days. So I will first start with question number 1, then I'll go to the question number 2, and then I'll go to the question number 3. And I'll ensure that first of all, I do all question number 1, all of them from September 18 up to June 21. How many total papers will be there? 7. How many total papers will be there? 7 from September 18 to June 21. Am I right? Can you confirm that? Anyone? Yes, there will be 7. There will be 7. Right? 7 papers in total. So how many question number 1s will you have? All of them from September 18 to June 21. You will have in total 7 Q1s. And you do the 7 Q1s. In the same way, you do the 7 Q2s. 7 Q2s. And in the same way, you do the 7 Q3s. If you don't want to go paper-wise, but if you love going paper-wise, then go paper-wise. Now you have to decide what sort of a student you are. Will you prefer going paper-wise? Will you prefer going question-wise? That's totally up to you. So I'm talking about the actual exams, right? 7 actual exams. So 7 Q2s, 7 Q3s, and 7 Q1s. Now, when you start to do the 7 Q1s, in the 7 Q1s, you will get every possible topic which comes in question number 1. You will get to know the topic risk. You will get to know the topic procedure because they have been regular part of the question number 1. You will get to know the topic ethical and professional issues in terms of question number 1. You will get to know the topic practice management because they've come a couple of times in the question number 1. Matters to consider, the topic we were doing today. Matters to consider in accepting a new audit client. In accepting a new audit client. In the first question, you will also get to know a topic known as evaluate the audit strategy of a component. Have come a couple of times. Evaluate the audit strategy of a component auditor. Using the work of a component auditor. I think once this question has come, that what sort of prerequisites you have to consider before using the work of the component auditor. So if you do all question number ones, the 7, you will get risk in all 7 questions, almost procedures in all 7 questions, ethical and professional issues you might get in like 5 out of 7 questions, practice management might be like 3 out of 7 questions, evaluate the audit strategy in 2 out of 7 questions, and using the work of component auditor, etc. Now, there could be some miscellaneous things in the question number 1, which I'm not taking here. But these are more focal topics of the question number 1. These are more focal topics of the first question. So by the end of the 7 questions 1, you will have a very good command and you will have a very good control on these particular areas. You need to read the marking schemes. You need to read the examiner reports of all 7 Q1s. Is everyone clear with this? Then you come to all 7 Q2s. Now, when you look at the all 7 Q2s, you will be getting lots of topics. You will be getting topics on audit reporting, because audit reporting used to come in Q2, now it is coming in Q3. So it's quite possible that sometime you do audit reporting in Q2 and Q3, irrespective of that. In the Q2s, you will get lots of quality control issues, lots of professional issues in Q2. In Q2, you will get lots of questions on evidence in the working paper file in the past papers of Q2s. So that's what makes the Q2, right? Going concern in the Q2. In the Q3s, you will be getting lots of questions on other assignments. In Q3, you will be getting audit reporting. Even in Q2, you will be getting communication to those charged with governance. And in the Q3s, you will be getting other assignments. You will get topics like audit reportings, so on and so forth. These are critical topics, right? So if you do the 7 questions 3, 7 questions 2, 7 question 1, and you plan to do 1 question a day, you plan to do 1 question a day, how many total questions we have? 21 questions, 7 multiplied by 3. So if you plan to do 1 question a day, you will complete all the 21 questions in the next 3 weeks. You have 30 days before exams. You will wrap up the past papers in 21 days. But every day when you do a past paper, solve it, reconcile it, read the examiner report. Then on the next day, open another question. So first complete all the Q1s, then complete all the Q2s, then complete all the Q3s. That's one approach. You want to go paper-wise? You want to do 1 paper, then start another paper, then start another paper. You need to decide which strategy is best for you. Is that clear to all of you? Now you have to decide yourself which strategy will you go with, paper-wise or question-wise, right? No, I will not recommend anything because that's totally up to you as a student. You want to go paper-wise or question-wise, because if I recommend something, everyone will forcefully start to follow it. My perspective was to give you a flexibility and choose what's good for you. So that's one way you can go down reaching your destiny of 6th of September. I have recommended you lots of articles on the day 1 to read. I think there was a list of 15 articles and 5 exam techniques article, right? So I hope you know the 15 plus 5 articles to read. I have recommended you that you will only practice papers from September 18 to June 21. You will not go prior to September 18, right? And I have also preferred you that you watch 3 previous webinar if you are a self-study student. 3 previous webinars. So at the end of the day, the final checklist, which you should all follow, irrespective whether you take the approach of paper-wise or question-wise, this should be your final approach. Number 1, just let me number them. Number 1, 7 past papers, 20 articles I recommended on the day 1, 3 previous webinars beside September 21, 7 past papers, 7 examiner answers. sorry, let's put them in one. 7 past papers plus answers plus examiner reports. 20 articles and 3 previous webinars besides September 21. And focus on recent changes in syllabus. I have guided you the recent changes in syllabus D1, D2 and G2. Focus on that. Also focus on recent articles even though examined. Even though examined. The focus on the recent articles even though examined. Number one is the proposed changes in code. Proposed changes in code. And number two is data analytics. Even though they have been examined, but they're still the most recent article. They're still the most recent article. So I hope you will cover the proposed changes in code. And I've guided you that I have a video of this on my YouTube channel in the orientation class, in the orientation webinar, day one, sorry. And data analytics, I also have a YouTube video on this on my YouTube channel, right? I hope you will go through that. So this should be the final approach. 7 past papers with answers, with examiner reports, 20 articles to read, 3 previous webinars to watch, focus on the recent changes in exam paper, in the syllabus areas, and focus on the recent articles, which even though have examined, but still remain important. As of today, when I'm concluding the webinar, there is no further article available. But I hope the guidance given to you in this webinar over the 5 days will benefit you in making a strategy. Okay, few of the final questions, which I would like to discuss with you, because that's what the student will continuously be asking. Let's look at this list of final questions here. Let's see if your question gets answered in this list. The first question: recent changes and their likely impact on exam setting. Have we covered this in our webinar? Recent changes and their likely impact on exam setting. Has this been covered intensely over the last 4 days? Quick answers from your side. Okay, number one, gone. Any recent articles in the last 1 month or so? Have I given you answer on that? So is there any recent articles in the last 1 month or so? Only 2 recent articles, proposed changes and data analytics. But has there been any specific article for September? No. How much time I have each day, each week? This is what you need to decide. How much time can you give to AAA every day? How much time can you give to AAA every week? You might be a job-based student. You might be a full-time student. How much time you can give every day? If I ask you give 4 hours a day, you say, oh no, that's impossible. I go to a job. So you need to make your timetables. How much time will you give each day? Because each day is important up to the 6th of September. So please formulate your timetable. For syllabus area G2, Muhammad Hasib, there is no article yet available. So obviously when an article will be published, only then syllabus area G2 will be examined. Where exactly I should focus on? Have I given you the answer? Where exactly you should focus on? 7 past papers, 3 previous webinars, 20 articles and recent articles, and focus on the changes. Have I given you where exactly should you focus on? Okay, should I be reading the book? Let's be blunt. No. No. Should I solve kit? Blunt. No. Only the past papers recommended. So frequently asked questions. How many articles? Which articles should I read? Have I given you answer to this? How many articles? Which articles to read? Have I given you answer to that? Because that's another frequently asked question. Okay, how many past papers should I solve? Have I given you answer to this frequently asked question? Okay, great. So most of the frequently asked questions which I extracted over the last 4 days by looking at your chat box, this is what I got, and I thought let's answer them in course of things. Right. Now, a lot of time the student expect in tips that the tutor tell you what can come and what cannot come. That's something most irrelevant now, because there are 4 exam sittings in 1 year. Predicting what can come, what cannot come is like very, very difficult. But yes, there is a high potential that audit risk or ROM will come this time. there is a high potential that examiner might come back with a review of prospective financial information. There is a high potential that examiner might include uh, the dashboard in your paper, like presenting the results of data analytics in the question number 1, or presenting the results in a different manner in the question number 1. So these are some sort of probabilities uh, which can strike your paper. But if over the next 1 week I develop some probabilities of things which can and cannot come, though that's very dangerous. I will put them on my Facebook page and will also share with you on your WhatsApp group, right? So that you have a good relevance to that. There was a question in the chat box, a student asking, can we attempt question in any order? Yes, you can attempt question in any order. And the AAA examiner tells us that a student who starts with the strongest question first pass the AAA paper. So you can start with whichever question you want, 2, 3, 1, whichever, but first complete it. Okay, now few last things before I wrap up my session on these tips. Let me take you to the practice platform for one final time. I hope you can all see the practice platform on your screens. And in the practice platform, there is a blank workspace. See, you open this blank workspace, you assign your blank workspace to you, and the blank workspace assigned comes on the left hand side of the screen, and you open it. Now, the moment you open a blank workspace, this is how a blank workspace looks like. The examiner has given you a blank workspace just to feel the real exam. See, examiner has given a skeleton right hand side of the screen. This is just a skeleton screen. And on the left, examiner has given you skeleton exhibit 1, exhibit 2, exhibit 3. Examiner has given you skeleton requirements, skeleton word processor, skeleton spreadsheet. Now, if you are attempting a question which is not available on the practice platform, just like the March 20 question we were doing, you will just open the word processor from here. And in this word processor, you will write your answer. The more you write the answer in word processor of any past paper you are doing, the better you will be using the word processor on the day of exam. So be sure that you type as many questions as possible, many answers as possible in the word processor, so you know how to use the commands of the word processor, how to type on word processor, and so that you develop a very good typing speed, which is much needed. So spellings and grammars are not penalized. I have been very clear on that. You should develop a typing speed. You should solve these papers on a practice platform. If a question is not available on the practice platform, then do it on the blank workspace where you have a word processor given to you, and you can type your answer on a word processor so that you feel more comfortable taking control of the word processor. I think I was very clear with you that in the question number 1, when you are writing a briefing note, before the briefing note, put a heading over here, rough working. And whatever main things you need to incorporate as part of your rough working, do them right over here. Copy paste things here. And when you complete your briefing note in the exam, just simply delete whatever you have written in the rough working. So I think I guided you about that format of rough working ahead of the briefing notes, because that could really be beneficial for you in the computer based exams, right? So please ensure you regularly visit the practice platform. Make a habit of visiting the practice platform every single day. Rohit, that is a very good question. Rohit is asking, do we add date in a briefing note format? Yes, you can add. Yes, you can add. It's not compulsory, but you can add. So if you look at the examiner writing a date in the email, if the examiner has written a date in the email, then you can also write the date in the briefing note. No, that's not the date of the exam. That's the date given in the email of the partner. Let me show you something here. Let's go back to the papers we were doing, because that's a good question, Rohit, and I think I should tell this to everyone. Suppose this is the latest June 21 exams we were looking for. Look at the partner email here in the June 21 exams on your screen. C. Is the partner giving a date in the brief in the email 1st of July 20x5? So this is the date you can use in the briefing note, right, Rohit? So the date given in the partner email, right? That date can be used when you are formulating a briefing note. So you can write the date. So to, from, subject, date, right? Yes, Rodwell, this is essential to give a conclusion of a briefing note. So question number 1 is to be formatted in a briefing note, and it is essential to give a conclusion to question number 1. So you have to give a conclusion, right? Ruth, you will not be penalized. You will not be penalized if you forget to delete the rough working, because you have already put a title on it, rough working. So you will not be penalized for it. But try your best to delete it. Try your best to delete it. Right? Conclusion is must in the question number 1, right? And the date you have to put is the date given in the briefing note. So when you formulate the briefing note, I think I did formulated the briefing note on the when I was answering the June 21 exams. So when you write the briefing note, you can put the date in the briefing note, right? Okay. Uh, okay, Chen. Hi, sir. We can attend any question first. As mentioned, do you recommend we need to read all 3 questions before starting the exams? Chen, I would prefer that. That's the only way you will decide which question to go for. So in the first 5 minutes, you can just read the requirements of the question number 1 in the partner email. You can read the requirement of the question number 2 and then the question number 3. And then, Chen, you can decide which question is best for you to start with. So definitely you have to read the requirements to decide which question to start with. Rohit is asking, sir, do we add date in the briefing note format? Yes. I think I answered that question, right? Okay, I think that was just the scroll of the screen. Can we write whole answer in the capital letter? No. You cannot write the whole answer in the capital letter. Nimya. Molly, can the financial statement in question 2 and 3 be like a dashboard style? It could be. It could be. If the examiner is presenting financial statements anywhere in the paper, Molly, it could be presented in a different format. But we're not sure whether this will start from September 21 exams. Not necessarily every changes comes from the September 21 exams. It might be that some of the changes comes from the December 21 exams. Okay, there was another question. Can we find the timer in the practice platform? Sujani, no. You have to use your own watch. Is the first 10 minutes in the exam included in 24 minutes reading and planning time for question number 1? No. The actual time, see, when you start the section A, when you read the instructions, after reading the instructions, you have 3 hours and 15 minutes, right? So you have 197 minutes, which you have to utilize for 3 questions. And on that basis, I have allocated 24 minutes, right? So that 10 minutes of the instruction time is not included in the 24 minutes, right? That's different. Yes, Mohammed Sunir, the same date you have in the partner email, the same date will be included in the briefing note. Okay. Yes, Tayyib Sheikh, you should read one audit report in proper form, because there is a question which comes in the past paper which asks you critically appraise the audit report. So to better solve that question, you should read one audit report at least. And I think in one of my previous webinars, I have shared audit reports which you should be reading. I will be sharing those audit reports with you on the WhatsApp group over the next one day. So don't be worried about it. Noor, 4 past papers will not be sufficient. I would prefer you do all 7, because 7 isn't a big number. Okay, thank you for the clarification, Lamia. Lamia is saying there is a timer in the actual computer-based exams, right? So if there is a timer, then that's wonderful. Then no need to use your own watches, right? So thank you for the clarification, because I don't know the actual scenario of the computer-based exams. which the student faces on the day of the exam. So the student actually is telling there is a timer. So thank you for the clarification. Okay, any other question you'd like to ask as we move to the concluding part of things? Sir, is there a list which provides details of topics discussed in each attempt webinar? Tayyib Sheikh, no, not possible. You need to watch the 3 previous webinar. Where can we get in-session files from the previous webinars? You need to request some of the students in the groups, in the WhatsApp groups. They will provide you that. Okay, Rodwell, in the event that I fail to finish question number 1, do I conclude with what I have written to get the professional marks? Yes. You need to give a conclusion of the question number 1, even though you have not attempted one part of the question number 1, Rodwell. So you try to give a conclusion before you wrap up the question number 1 and exit, even though the time is up, because in that way, at least you will get your professional marks, right? Okay. Which webinar you should watch first, Hamza? After September 21, you should watch the June 21, and then you go in the reverse order. Go in the reverse order. Spelling and grammar checks doesn't matter in the exam, Zafar. Can you say kindly contact me for further information? No, you cannot say this in the AAA paper. In the conclusion part of the briefing note, you should simply be concluding the main findings of the briefing note. So the main findings of the briefing note should be concluded in the conclusion paragraph of the briefing note. No need to show the workings for calculation, Muhammad Sunir. Is the answer auto-saved? Yes, the answer is auto-saved. Okay, let's wrap up. I hope if you can just drop the feedback of the overall webinar day 1 to day 5 in the next 5 minutes as I proceed towards the conclusion of this webinar, that would be very, very good for me to understand the overall feedback. If you can just drop your overall feedback if you have participated in all 5 days, that would be really, really good. And secondly, I hope you have benefited from this September 20 webinar over the last 5 days. I tried my best to keep an agenda this time, which is different from my previous webinars. I particularly focused on the latest paper more, which was the June 21, and we almost went through every question of the June 21 past paper in this webinar. So I wish you all a very best of luck. Try to reinforce, try to implement the learnings you got from this webinar. Try to implement the techniques you got from this webinar, the approach you got from this webinar, and from the previous webinars as well, so that you can excel on the day of exam. Remember, you have a challenge. 33% student passed AAA in the first attempt, and to be among the 33, you need to do serious efforts over the next 1 month. 1 month is a good time. So every day counts. Make a timetable and sit down to study. If you are facing any difficulties, you're facing any issues, you have a WhatsApp group. You can drop your message in the WhatsApp group. If I have time, I will respond to your queries over the next 1 month. You have a very good opportunity. You have a student WhatsApp group for September. You can put any query in that, and the students can answer you. If I don't like an answer of a student, I might criticize and I might put the right answer. And I try my best to keep in touch with you over the WhatsApp group in the next 30 days before your exams. And any advices, any updates, if any happens in the next 30 days, I'll be keeping you up to date for all that. So thank you all very much for participating and taking your time out every day of this webinar. Thank you very much for being part of it. It's your tutor, Kashif Kamran, signing off from the AAA Practice to Pass webinar for September 2021 exams. I hope you will implement the final tips and techniques which have been given to you. And I hope I tried my best to answer as many questions as possible which you raised while we started with the tips and techniques session. So Wish you all a very best of luck and continue to study in a very effective manner. That is it for the webinar, and I'll be very, very happy to see your results when they come out. And I wish that all of you get pass in the very first exam sitting. Take good care of yourself. Have a nice day. Have a nice preparation for your exams. It's your tutor Kashif Kamran signing off from the AAA P2P for September 21 being organized by ACC Pakistan. Good night. Take good care of yourself. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.